G'day folks, welcome to another impromptu video today. Not really going to talk from a script, but I'm going to talk from personal experience. I did some research overnight looking at a national cabinet meeting that took place in Australia in early part of this year. Now that particular meeting raised a very interesting situation, and it talked about the NDIS moving children in the education system off the NDIS back to the state system. Now, there'll be many of you in the NDIS system going, oh, this is wrong, it's going to put us out of a job. Well, that's kind of part of the idea. Let me explain why. As a disabled person who lived through the 80s and 90s in what I call the bridge era. Now, let me explain the three eras I'm talking about. First of all, the era before the 80s was what's called institutionalism, where kids of disabilities were put either into a specialist school or were put into an asylum-style form of education. During the 80s and 90s, we went to what's called an integration model, which is the bridge era. The bridge era went into the 2000s too, by the way. This was a model whereby you had an integration teacher in the school and you had visiting teachers that came as a supplementary, not an aide, but a visiting teacher to help the student. I lived through this era and I had a great visiting teacher whom I still communicate with today. So I can speak from personal experience, this actually worked. So why do I think the NDIS system today, with teachers' aides running around everywhere that are like a growth of a student's hip, isn't the model we should go down? What this does is create the child to be dependent on the NDIS, rather than the child being independent and the NDIS be a supplement to the learning in their education. In other words, the private provider with the plan takes over the child's education as opposed to the education system. That's where the problem lies. So what we need to look at is the bridge era. And this is where I think the government with its Thriving Kids model is going back to. Now, the bridge era involving integration teachers and visiting teachers was based on a needs basis. And this is where the NDIS is going to be heading. A needs basis rather than a diagnosis basis. So we're going to start seeing a very different change in the NDIS. And I think I know where they're going back to. I can read this like a book. We will go back to an era whereby the state governments run the system to assist a child in education. So here's where I think the NDIS plans have created a very big problem. It's the plan that's the problem. The plan is driven by the private sector, not the public sector that runs the education system. Now, the private school system use a hybrid, which is very similar to using the bridge mold where they have an integration teacher and visiting teacher system, or under a different structure, but it works in a similar way. The reason they do that is because private schools work on the idea of personal empowerment, whereas the NDIS system creates a system whereby reliance is the key rather than independence. So we're at a crossroad, and this is where I think the government is heading with this Thriving Kids model. So is it too late to fix a broken wheel? Well, in my view, not really. It just needs to be looked at. Now, the issue here is the qualification of teachers' aides that you see everywhere now isn't quite up to the standard of what a visiting teacher or a integration teacher actually is qualified for. So this creates a very big problem for the education system at the university and TAFE sector. So what do they do to fix this? Well, in my view, the way to do it would be to offer an extended training program for teachers' aides to become qualified as a visiting teacher or a disability-specific teacher. So this allows for a bridging system. It gives them a bit of breathing space so that they don't have a problem where teachers' aides leave the industry and there's a massive gap in the education system to fill that void. We have to be very sensible about this. What's happened is the private system run by the invoice model, which is what the NDIS runs on, has fast become a problem in this particular space. And I think looking at the bridge error model in a modern context might be the answer to the problem that they have. You enjoy your day. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. And if you like the content we lay down, do in fact hit that all notification bell. So every time I get a bright idea for a video, you'll be the first to know about it. Catch you next time, right here on Nick's Vision to Hear.